up ahead. Affirmative 612.
Time for another round of the Wealthy Pilots podcast with Scott Osborn and myself to talk about record profits in the airlines and what to do with it. Scott, there's been some good buzz out there with some of these profits, and the market obviously finished up in 24 and 23, 20+% up. By the market, I mean the S&P 500. And I know there's not always a direct correlation between the two, companies doing well, the market doing well, but you know, it is what it is there. So what do you think, and what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. One kind of theory we talk about, or a concept we talk a lot about with clients, is like, never forget that the economy, which is the aggregate performance of all these companies, is different from the stock market. And so, we look at a stock market price sometimes can actually go down after a company records record profits, and it's like, why is that? Oh, well, they have record profits, but the profits were not as record as we thought they were going to be. Or we have record profits, but the Q4 outlook was flat instead of even more positive than they were anticipating. So the share price goes down. So it's interesting to see those things, long term. Yeah, they are correlated, but in that short term, quarter to quarter, it's a coin toss in terms of, what is performing as far as, stock price and profitability. Now, we do know, especially for we'll talk a little bit about Delta today.
Delta, yeah, some big numbers right there for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the average, they said it's looking like it's going to pay out about 5 weeks people's salary coming out in terms of profit sharing.
And Valentine's Day, right? So Delta's profits, 1.4 billion.
That's
so
solid.
On Valentine's Day, that is pretty stout. That's their profit sharing day.
And it's interesting. I've obviously we work with all the major airlines, but I actually was in this discussion with a United guy and an American guy, and they were talking about Delta, and they said, man, one thing that with them, they just got such great leadership. And, we actually started looking into it together a little bit, because it was kind of interesting. Like, why, some of the other airlines are still performing really well, but the profitability isn't there. And you look back, and so much of it, I think, has really come from when you look at Delta upgraded their fleet, and they've had lower interest rates, lower cost of capital. And so there's a lot of that with them that yes, they've gotten a lot of the operational efficiency, but so much of the profitability has come from just lower cost of capital when they were borrowing a bunch of money to upgrade the fleet. So
that makes a ton of sense. And I got to tell you, Scott, we got to come up with something here. The way you started to phrase that, right? An American guy and a Delta guy, and a United guy all walk into a bar.
I'll walk into a bar.
So
yeah, there you go.
It feels like a joke. I don't know what the punchline is,
figure
but
it out. And then a Southwest guy comes in and blah, blah, blah. So, but all the companies are, going through different things, right? I mean, we'll talk here a little bit in the upcoming weeks, I'm sure, about some of the news with Southwest Airlines and, some of their cost cutting measures. We know what Spirit's been working through with some of their bankruptcy negotiations and all that. But, the bottom line is, for the companies that are making a lot of money right now and engage in profit sharing, especially, to Delta's standpoint, a record level of profit sharing, the question comes like, hey, what should we plan on doing with that? They get something in the email that comes in, basically like, hey, what do you want to do with your profit sharing? I always recommend you want to take a certain percentage and celebrate the good times. Okay. Even if yes, I'm a huge advocate of saving and investing, but we got to enjoy our lives too.
Now it's Valentine's Day. So I'm just saying, get a little something for your loved one, and if you're the one that works for Delta or whomever,
yes,
us fellas we need some love too, so that'd be cool. It'd be cool.
Absolutely.
Nice steak dinner,
absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, the opportunity to, yes, enjoy some of that is definitely there. But then it's like, okay, after that, what do we do? First and foremost, if you're, a top earning pilot at a major airline, you're probably going to be in a higher tax bracket, especially if you're married and your spouse is working. So, it can definitely make a lot of sense to still just, put that away over into the pre-tax 401k. Now, if you're somebody that's like, and we have this discussion a lot, and to me, a lot of times it comes down to personal preference too. The company's contributions are going into the pre-tax bucket. So if you want to make your contributions go over into that Roth bucket and build some of the tax-free up, you can do that as well. And just really, you take a little bit of tax hit now, but you're at least diversifying the wealth that you're building across different tax classifications. I've never found somebody that showed up in retirement that looked back and said, I wish I would have saved less over in my Roth. Never had it happen one time. With that said, though, you do have to make that conscious decision of, hey, if I'm going to put it over in the Roth, I am going to kind of take it a little bit more harshly up front here. So using that profit sharing to kind of front load your 401k savings, it just gets the money in the market that much quicker. If we look back at 2024 from Q2 through Q4, we just had a lot of up and down. 50% of the return came in the first quarter of the year, practically. And so, the 8 out of 10 times the market's positive. And so generally speaking, we recommend if you got money to put in the market, do it sooner in the year. Sooner is definitely always better. If you're trying to grow a big tree, sooner is better than later. It's no different than investing in the market. Sooner is better than later. Hey, if we can get more money over there and you don't need the cash, max it out early. Most guys are going to max it out, by summer or, early fall, regardless. So, if you're getting a good profit sharing check and, you like I said, spend a little bit of it, enjoy it, celebrate, take 5 or 10% at least and do something with it to enjoy. And then just max that thing out.
And Scott, there's always the basics of finance, right? So spend a little on yourself, as you mentioned. Shore up your emergency fund, maybe, if you're a little lacking there. You might not be, but, hey, could be. Talk with your advisor. Get an advisor, and say, hey, where's some of my weaknesses? Let's get some good wins with some of this extra dough.
Well, the other thing that's nice is when you get done max in the 401k, you get it feels like a pay raise, because you got all your contributions in there and you're getting a little bit more on the paycheck. So, it can be nice to just get that done early too. So again, especially for Delta with such a large profit sharing, the other ones, at least as we're recording this here today, haven't come out yet, but with that level of profit sharing coming in, it can be awesome to just get the 401k contributions done. And then you got that extra cash every month. And that's where a lot of guys are, again, back to those tax buckets, right? I got my Roth tax free over here. I got my pre-tax, and then they'll be putting in, somewhere between $1,000 and $4,000 a month over here in this taxable bucket to grow that for early in retirement. So if that's something that you're not doing, it probably means you don't have an intentional outside of my 401k savings plan, and you need to talk to somebody about that. Because if you look at the lifestyle built around the income for most pilots today, what you're going to save in the 401k typically isn't going to cut it in retirement. So you got to really make sure that you're diversifying your savings outside the 401k too.
Yeah. Well, and folks, Scott does these complimentary 15-minute consultations and strategy sessions. It's a great way to get started. So if you do need some help, reach out to a qualified professional, who, like Scott, who's been helping families get to and through these situations, helping pilots, and he's got the military background as well. So if you got some questions, got some concerns, reach out to him. We got the links in the show descriptions below. You've seen it popping up there on the throughout the episode, retireairlines.com. That is retireairlines.com. And I don't know, Scott, is there anything else we might have missed, or anything else you want to finish off on before we wrap up this episode this week?
Yeah, I think the last thing I'd leave you with is times are good in some of the airlines right now. But if you talk to any gray-haired, captain, they'll tell you times are not always like this. And so just be cautious not to build your lifestyle around some of this too. That's the last thing I would say is, I always thought the good rule of thumb of building your lifestyle, one level below where you want to be, or where you're at. So if I'm an FO or if I'm a captain, I'm going to, build my lifestyle off of being a senior FO. If I'm a senior FO, I'm going to build it off of being a junior FO. And so, I think that lifestyle creep can very, very easily come in to our budgets. And so, it's one thing to do that with a little bit higher negotiated pay rate. Really, really try to avoid that with profit sharing, because pay rates are a little bit harder to go down. Obviously that comes with a whole new renegotiated contract, which comes during really hard times. I mean, profit sharing can just go to zero next year. So you want to be careful that that doesn't turn into money you are counting on for your lifestyle. So be careful with that. That'd be the last thing.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. As we've wrapped this up, lifestyle creep is a very real thing.
Oh, yeah.
As we start to make more, do better in life, we start to live a little higher on the hog, as the saying goes. And next thing you know, you're like, man, where did all these extra expenses come from? So that's a good point to keep in mind as well. So again, thanks for hanging out with us on the Wealthy Pilots podcast. If you need some help, reach out to Scott. Find the links below. Go to retireairlines.com, whatever's easiest for you, and catch us on the next episode. Subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Check out some shorts, all that good stuff. Ring the notification bell and catch new episodes when they come out. And we'll see you next time right here on the Wealthy Pilots podcast with Scott Osborn. Thanks a lot.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.